Hi, my name is Daniela Galluzo and I'm a fourth year languages and literature student at Wilfrid Laurier University. So this program is one of a kind in Ontario. So basically you just get to focus on perfecting speaking French and Spanish, and then you have the option to do a minor in a third language, and you get to pick between German, Italian, and Arabic, and I chose to do German. So why I chose this program: I grew up speaking Spanish, I took French all throughout high school, I have an interest in learning new languages, and I wanted to keep perfecting my skills as well as learning a new language because I did not know how to speak German before entering university. The program is very small and everyone generally knows each other, all of your professors will know who you are. It's just a very small, personal, helpful environment. It is lecture-based with lots of room to practice speaking the language, and a lot of courses will have a huge participation mark because it is so important to practice speaking amongst each other and speaking with your prof in order to evaluate your skills. The first 2 years were more written and oral based on grammar, and now it's mainly based on culture courses. There's assignments, there's group works, there's presentations and papers. So the pace overall is manageable, but there have been weeks where I've had about 4 midterms at once, and I find that with a lot of programs you will have busy weeks like this, but as long as you keep studying ahead of time, it is all manageable. The skill sets you need for this program is definitely to practice writing, speaking, listening, reading as much as you can. It's not helpful to just do it while you're in class. If you're not practicing at home and using it every day, unfortunately you could lose the language. So for grammar-based content, I found that cue cards worked for new vocabulary. It's also very helpful to practice speaking with other people in the program. And for exams based on books or films, make sure that you're not reading the entire book right before the exam, and make sure that you actually watch the films that you're being tested on. So classes were originally more grammar based, and then in later years you have to focus more on culture because there's a certain amount of culture courses you have to take in order to graduate. So there's lots of history courses. There's also the mandatory English linguistics course that you have to take. And then there's 2 other required courses that are taught in English. So you have the option of picking between MI 201 or MI 202, which is Mediterranean culture, and then you have the option of picking between LL 200 or LL 201, which is cultural perspectives, and that focused a lot on European history. For this program, I think that you have to make sure that you genuinely enjoy learning new languages, and that you want to perfect your skills. You want to practice all sorts of ways to perfect it. There's lots of speaking in front of others, and there's lots of writing. So if you're not a huge fan of writing, or you're not a huge fan of speaking in front of others, this may be a downside to this program. So the minimum admission range is in the low 70s, and the only required course that you need is English at 60%. Last year the cutoff point was low 80s instead of low 70s, so there is a bit of competition. And so French is not a required course in order to take the program. So if you didn't take it throughout high school, you would get put in FR 101 in the fall and then FR 102 in the winter. If you did take French all throughout high school, you'd get put in FR 150 in the fall and then FR 151 in the winter. And if you did French immersion, you get put in FR 250 in the fall and FR 251 in the winter. For the application process, there's a written portion that all Laurier students have to write out when they apply. It is in English and it is optional. Some people found it helpful for their admissions process, but again, it is optional. I think that it's definitely helpful to have taken at least some French in high school so that you don't start all languages at the beginner's level if you haven't had previous experience speaking them beforehand. So 2 of my favorite courses, well, the first one was FR 235, which was 20th century France, that focused on the history of France, and it was just a very interesting course and my prof was very engaging. There's also SP 335, which is Spanish and Latin American cinema. So that we got to watch 10 different films and then we had to write a reflection for each of them, and I thought that course was so interesting because there were so many movies that I got to watch from different directors for all over Latin America that I wouldn't have watched otherwise. And one of my all-time favorite movies I've learned from this class. My advice is to find a history course that you're interested in, because there are a certain amount of culture courses that you have to take. You may have to take 1 or 2 history courses in order to graduate. So the downside of this program is, since the program size is so small, certain courses are only offered at one time, so you may end up having a class first thing in the morning or a class very late at night, and there's no other time that this course is offered at. As well as this, certain courses alternate per year, so there may be certain classes that are only offered once every 2 years. So my advice for this is to make sure that you fill up all your Spanish and French requirements as soon as possible to make sure that the courses that you want to take, you're able to take while you're still here. So a lot of people end up going to teachers college to become a French or Spanish teacher, especially French, because there's a shortage of them. It's always great to have them in Ontario. And throughout my schooling, I've had multiple jobs. I currently work as a bilingual editor, English and French, and then I do occasional English to French translations. As for future employment, I would like to stay in the translation field, maybe do English to Spanish or French to Spanish. The program also has a co-op option. I personally did not do it, but you can apply at the end of your first year. And in your upper years, you can apply to be a TA to, teach the beginners French and Spanish courses. So in my first year, I lived on campus. I lived in KSR, King Street Residence, and that was a great experience because I got to meet a bunch of new people, make new friends. So it was a single style dorm. I got to share a bathroom with one other person. There's about 30 of us on our floor. So the only downside to this is it's such a small space, and I feel like it can be a hard transition from living at home to suddenly being confined in such a tiny space. So for off-campus student housing, whenever I started looking for the following years, I typically looked in December or January because after that I find that some places can fill up really fast. So if you want to get involved in clubs related to the program, we do have a French and Spanish club, and I was part of both. We also have a German club, and we used to have an Italian one. I'm not sure if it's running anymore, but it could be started back up if there's enough interest. As well as this, there's Laurier International. So you can work there in order to help our inbound international students adjust to life in Canada. They're also a great resource if you yourself want to go and exchange. They're always there to help you out with your application process and provide you with as much information as you need. So there's the Wellness Center for anytime you're feeling sick, and they're also there to provide mental health help. A great resource is the Delton Glebe Center for mental health, and the university's health plan will cover 80% of that. For student life, diversity, and equity, there's 4 student associations. There's the Association of Black Students, the Rainbow Center, the Center for Women and Trans People, and the Muslim Students Association. So I would definitely tell myself to take advantage of the on-campus resources. There were lots of times where I was feeling ill and I just would not go to the Wellness Center. There's also the Career Center, which is a great resource if you want to, keep building your resume. They're there to give you tips on how it looks, and as well as cover letter tips. And I would also tell myself to not burn myself out trying to do everything. I did try to get as involved as I could in first year, and while that is a good thing, you do need to have a healthy balance between your academics, your clubs, and just your personal social life in general.